Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and my guest this week is Dasha, who's a registered dietitian and who recognizes that there are all kinds of ways of eating healthy, and one of the keys is, you guessed it, eating less sugar. And I find that this was a fascinating conversation with Dasha because we also get into the culture of eating. We'll get to our chat in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And while you're at aftersugarclub.com, why not take the cravings quiz? I created this cravings quiz specifically to help you start thinking more deeply about what triggers your cravings. And when you do this quiz, you'll get your personalized score as well as my practical tips to help you take your first step to get rid of cravings. Those free resources are at aftersugarclub.com. And also, come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. All right, so let's get to my chat with Dasha. All right, so I'm here today with Dasha, and can you tell us a little bit about your background growing up with food and especially with sugar?
Absolutely. I grew up in a Russian household. So my mom actually cooked all of our dinners for us. We had a lot of processed foods in the house. So there was never a no sugar environment. Sugar wasn't something that we monitored. It was part of my lifestyle. I always had juice with my dinner. I always had fruit in the house. And I also had ice cream in the house. So there was really no restriction when I was growing up that made me limit sugar, but really cultivated what I would say is a really healthy relationship for a child growing up and being able to experience things and not really having any food rules in the house while still getting nourishing meals, homemade, home cooked every single day. And I won't say that they were the healthiest. There weren't always plenty of vegetables, but homemade Russian kind of dishes that were really brought me closer to my culture as well. So I'm very grateful for all of that.
Nice. And how long did you live in Russia?
I never lived in Russia. My family came here in 94 to New Jersey, to the United States.
Okay.
Yeah, so they moved here and I was born, so I grew up exclusively in the United States, but I think a lot of that too, as a family that came to the United States with $50 to their name. And it was a lot of bringing the culture that they had and they carried and making ends meet where they could, which, like I said, included a variety of everything and really rarely eating out because that was almost like a luxury and not really normal for other cultures, I would say, really abroad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so you grew up American. And did you notice a cultural difference in how you grew up in America to your parents, especially with regards to food?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mainly the cooking piece. I can't explain how important it will be for my own children and moving forward that they have home cooked meals. Not only is it, cultural, but it is a social gathering. It is time to bring together the family. I've noticed that, when we relied, other Americans, like culturally, when I was growing up, it was always like, oh, they have different snacks than me. They have different like takeouts than me. I would die on Friday for a Domino's pizza. I was like, the other kids all get this and I don't get this. I don't get the Chinese takeout every Saturday like the kids do. But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I didn't have that in my life now looking back because I just kids are our outlet to the future and how we can shape nutrition. And it is the most important time to create a healthy, nurturing environment for them where they have good practices. They're eating breakfast, they're eating lunch, they're eating dinner with snacks. Like that routine is so, so necessary for children to ingrain in them, not only for, blood sugar balance and healthy relationships with food, but also hormone function, gut health, all these things, they all play into regular established meal timings with balanced meals that are home cooked, that are less processed. So,
Yeah, and I hear you speak, and I think, well, that's about as far removed as American culture can be, as from what
hmm
little I know of American food culture.
hmm and I would say, it's not, we all kind of group Americans into processed foods 24/7, but the reality is convenience is everything. And I think Americans we demonize how they view food and how their relationship with food, but I think there's a lot of love to give because they're overworked, they like chronically are stressed, like there's so much that's not allowing them to give themselves the time to take care of themselves, to give themselves the time to cook dinner every night. Like they're just exhausted and running through all these stressors, whereas I feel as though there's a lot of this too probably goes into policy and legalities, but I think there's just a cultural shift of the normality of what work really entails outside of the United States as well.
Yes, yes, I was going to say, I mean, I live in Canada, but I used to live in the UK and travel quite often to France. And the concept of work is different and the work week, and it you can't separate the concept of how you use time, how you relate to time, from how you eat. And for example, last year we had an Italian student staying with us for the year. And, you know, his family, I can't extrapolate for all Italians, but it seemed pretty generalized that his family, at the very least, had this relationship, not only with food, but with preparing food, where it wasn't a task to get through as fast as possible. It was the highlight of their day. And I think
Mhm.
up here in North America, we're a bit further removed from that. What do you think?
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And I think that that's that peace and that time and also a lot of family dynamics that goes into it, right? I mean, in other cultures, it's very common for a grandmother to live within the home of the family and for them to be have more support from a familial perspective, whereas in the United States, it's we're all over the place. We're constantly hustling. We're running around. And that chaos externally creates chaos internally, um, which we know and see in a lot of that health dysfunction in the United States.
Yes, yes, it makes total sense. And so, do you think that diet begins elsewhere in our relationship with time, with work, with stress, um, before we can even change what we actually eat?
Mm. Do you mean the mentality around our relationship with
Exactly
food?
that. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes hand in hand because you can't have one without the other. It's the gut brain connection exists for a reason. Your diet's going to influence your mind and your mind is going to influence your gut and your hormone health. So it has to be a synergistic acceptance towards almost It's funny because what I would say that I see in my population a little bit more is the idea of letting go. Because people let go in certain areas of their lives, and the idea that maybe this stress is something that I can internally focus on. Maybe accepting that I am the problem. I have a problem that I need to work through, and and instead of looking at it as a problem, I always love to say it's an opportunity. Once you realize what that roadblock was for you, it is an opportunity to change, to get better, to feel healthier, to feel more alive. And I think that getting to that point is that first step, recognizing where am I now? What makes me unhappy on a day-to-day basis? And how can I shift that to create the happiest, healthiest version of me?
Yeah. Yes, I often say awareness is the first step because you can't change what you're not aware of.
Absolutely.
And what is like the biggest challenge that you see in your line of work with people's diet and how they feel?
Hmm. Helping them realize how easy it is.
Okay.
We always want to grasp on the latest huge trend. Oh, I have to try the ketogenic or this extreme diet or this thing. Oatmeal is bad for me. Fruits and vegetables are bad for me. Like, I'm so confused with nutrition. I'm like, let's forget what social media is saying right now and go back to the basics of what we know of how to build a healthy plate, right? We include the fruits and vegetables, we include some starchy carbohydrates, we include the proteins, and we include a healthy fat. We always have grown up on that core premise of whole foods first.
Right, right. And what for you is an extreme diet or an extreme way of eating?
Cutting out major food groups. So, for example, I would say a vegan diet or a carnivore diet oppositely, a ketogenic diet where we're cutting out all carbohydrates. That to me is an extreme diet, only because if we go back to cultures with the blue zones, for example, that we've done studies and we look at, how the longevity of the eldest is always a very balanced plate. It's just whole foods first and it's very balanced, and more than anything, it's community, it's purpose, it's hope. That's what's driving these people to live the longest. It's that decreased stress. So, what I preach always at corporate form is the five speed pillars, which, if you can capture these five things to lower your stress buckets, you will be able to exceed and excel in your health no matter what. So, those are sleep, personal stress. Personal stress is how you receive your environment, right? We all have kids, we all have work, but how you are triggered by that is in your full control. So, sleep, personal stress, environmental stress, which would be like mold or air quality or water quality, those are a huge stressor to our systems sometimes. And then exercise and diet.
Mhm.
So, all of these things, right? If we're overeating or under eating, all of those things can add stress to our bodies. So, as much as we can decrease that stress, lower and create a healthier relationship with food, I think you hear all these things, it's like, oh, well, yeah, duh, that makes sense. And it's like, yes, right. It's so simple. And yet we get so overwhelmed with all these complexities in social media of what other people are doing, which is great for them, but you have to find what works for you.
Yeah, and that in itself is a challenge because, I don't even, we don't have a background, all of us, in nutrition. And quite frankly, I don't think we need studies in nutrition to know how to eat. What we need is to get like step away from all this pollution, this information pollution, I mean, um, to kind of ask ourselves the right questions, one of which, for myself at least, is how do I want to feel?
Absolutely.
But it sounds like a lot of people are really confused, with good reason, about what am I supposed to eat and what even constitutes food.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think a lot of it too is overwhelming when you don't know what's wrong with you and you haven't discovered your root cause yet, right? So you feel fatigued, you feel bloated, you feel maybe drained of energy, but you're not exactly sure what that diet looks like for you. And so you try the next supplement, you try the next diet, you try and you try, and you're just exhausted and you just stay stuck going through all these things. And that's a lot of what we do is eliminating all those potential triggers for you and building out the best diet that makes you feel the best while identifying those root cause symptoms, because it might be blood sugar imbalances for some people, but it might be a cortisol issue or a gut issue or an infection or whatever is going on for them.
Yeah, yeah. And in my Life After Sugar podcast and in my program, I help people who don't want to feel like under the spell of sugar anymore and they don't want to have sugar cravings anymore. And you mentioned blood sugar. So do you think that it's a common experience, for the people that you help to have problems with their blood sugar?
Absolutely. With stress, so the way that like I said, those five speed pillars, right? When our body is under extreme stress, what's called our cortisol rises. When our cortisol rises, our blood sugar increases the amount of it in our bodies. So if you are constantly stressed, even without food, you can increase your blood sugar levels. And so that phenomenon in itself just underplays how important those stress pillars are and how balancing and regulating your blood sugars is a great first step to becoming healthy, to eating healthy, understanding what your body feels like, where these fluctuations happen. And I'm sure you talk so much about it in your program about what symptoms could look like. And it's so individualized, which is another confusing part, right?
Yeah, totally. Yes, because we're not used to, especially mothers, and I take us as a specific example, we're not used to looking after ourselves. We're used to looking after everybody else. And so we sort of tend to ignore how we actually are feeling. We're just
Right.
like, we just think we're exhausted and that's normal.
Yeah, and that's that time piece, right? Having the time to sit, to feel those emotions, and even maybe pairing that with cooking, allowing that to be that 1 hour that you just get to have time to yourself and prepare for not only the family, but to ask yourself, what am I feeling today? Like, what is going on in my body? I think that's so important.
Totally, yeah. I mean, for me, cooking, maybe not a whole hour because I don't necessarily have a whole hour at night, but just that time of cooking, for me, it's a way to express my creativity. But,
Mhm.
I don't know that many people for whom it's that kind of
It's
outlet.
not for me. It's not for me, and I'm a registered dietitian. So, I don't even love cooking. I really don't. So for me, I feel that battle, but I also find other outlets for myself for that creativity, for feeling my body, for being able to just give myself 5, 10 minutes of tapping in and saying, what's going on today?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. And as a registered dietitian, in your training, what did they say about sugar specifically, like refined sugar? I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar.
Not the best. Not the best. We'd want to avoid it as much as possible. Whole fruits are fine, but refined sugar we should be avoiding.
Okay. And that's, of course, in my experience, easier said than done.
Mhm. Yeah.
especially in the United States, but not exclusively. So, how would you like if someone came along like they do for me and said, you know, I'm struggling with cravings, I'm struggling with like my weight. How do you, what do you say to them about their consumption of sugar?
We need to build first those balanced meals we talked about. And I always love to give this example is think about yourself as a baby. Whenever you have gut issues, a hormone issue, whatever it is, the things that we do with a child when we're raising a child is going to be one, timed meals, not when they're crying and frustrated, but timed meals to prevent the chaos, right? So we do the timed meals. We have a consistent schedule. That's what helps them build that proper sleep patterns, just like they help us build the proper sleep patterns. And then thinking about, easy to digest foods, we think about a baby. First it was milk, it was liquids, then it was pureed foods, then it was, you don't feed a baby a steak or a piece of cake, right? You feed them very strategically and build that up, or it's a balanced meal growing up. So I always like to compare it to a baby and a child of how we should be restructuring and thinking about ourselves because we need to be restructuring our meal times, making sure they're balanced, making sure we are the ones being well fed. And usually, a lot of when clients first come to me, it's about building those healthy meals, healthy plates first. And that helps to establish proper blood sugar levels. And that can improve their hormones and that can improve their gut health. Um, but it can get complex, of course, if you have specific medical variations in the diet itself. You can't have, for example, milk, or you can't have chickpeas or almonds. There are specific foods for each person. But that's what we help you navigate.
Okay, yeah. And as a registered dietitian, can you give us an idea of what you eat in a typical day?
Yeah, sure. So in the mornings, I actually make protein pancakes with coconut flour, with egg, and um, I launched this Core Perform protein has maple banana bread flavor. So it helps me make like banana bread pancakes in the morning. And then I'll put yogurt on it with berries, and then I'll have sweet potatoes when I'm working out. I'll usually have some sort of smoothie a few hours later, including a protein or fruit or whatever else that I want that day. Usually for lunch, I'll have some sort of salad with a carbohydrate inside of it with olive oils and protein of choice. And then for dinner, I'll have some variation of the same cooked vegetable, um, protein, healthy fat, usually via the protein, sometimes like an avocado or something like that. And then a sweet treat.
Yeah, like what?
So I love those kinds of things. I actually do love the sugar-free chocolate chips that you can buy. But right now I'm just doing 100% dark chocolate with pieces of fruit.
Yeah.
So it
Okay.
allows me to get that chocolate taste while still getting sweetness from a natural source too.
Yeah, that chocolate, I tell you,
I
it's
know.
like one of the last things to go.
I know. I love it.
Yeah, so do I. Actually, I don't love chocolate anymore. I used to. And gradually over time, my tastes changed when I stopped
You,
eating sweet
do you not
food.
like cacao either?
So I like cacao, the powder, but with
Yeah.
no additives, you know. So
Yeah, that's for us. We when we buy 100% chocolate, it's all cacao. Like it is just 100% bitterness. So
yeah,
that's what I'm doing too. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy. So we have salt receptors and sugar receptors that can actually be modulated. So when you take it out, just like when you take out salt and then you reintroduce salt, anything that's even a little salty will be extra, extra salty. So having a phase where you clear out your sugar or you clear out your salt intake, I would not do it without supervision, especially with medication. It can really influence your kidneys with a lot of your blood pressure, with a lot of medication in general. So I wouldn't do huge sodium swings, it can be quite dangerous. But I would say that either of those salt or sugar cleanses can allow you to reset your receptors, just like you can reset your caffeine, maybe addiction, or whatever else that you may have.
Yeah, that was my experience for sugar. I mean, the big difference being that salt is essential for your body to function, but sugar isn't. So, cutting out salt altogether is more dangerous than cutting out sugar altogether, as far as I know from human biology, but correct me if I'm wrong.
I would completely agree. Sodium is essential. I would say that the only difference, we don't need added sugar into our diet, but everything gets broken down to glucose at the end of the day. And glucose is a key nutrient for our health. And that's why we have backup mechanisms to create glucose from fats and from proteins. That is so essential for our main energy source that we do need glucose. However, the body is capable of deriving it from healthier alternatives that are not added sugar. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my take on it.
Yeah, well said, well said. And it's nice to hear a registered dietitian like yourself say that um, glucose is essential, not carbs.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, nice to hear that distinction because I don't
Mhm.
often hear it. So thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what it makes it all again so confusing is, glucose is the most essential nutrient for our brain and for all these things. And that's why a lot of times um, it gets a bad rap, right? Because it is so essential for us that our body loves it and it's very highly digestible because we rapidly can utilize that energy. It's when it's in excess and we're sitting and we're stressed all day and we're not regulating that glucose spike. That's dangerous because, we need steady, stable energy throughout the day. And so tips I'm sure you talk about too is, eating your carbs last in your meal or using apple cider vinegar, a couple of tablespoons diluted in water can all help regulate that glucose response. But learning proper portion sizes is a huge part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, as we're all different, as you know, but I think the apple cider vinegar hack from like the glucose goddess kind of
Mhm.
tapped into that one. I personally just cannot stand the taste of
Oh, me
apple
neither.
cider vinegar, so I
Me
just
neither.
don't consume any.
Yeah, you don't need to,
No,
right?
actually, I make my own kombucha and it's pretty vinegary by the end of a couple of months that it brews. So
Fermentation.
it comes to the same kind of thing. But I don't take it at the beginning of a meal, like she says for her hack. And I don't really eat that many carbs either. It's like it doesn't work for me, all these things. But, I don't eat that often to keep my blood sugar stable. In fact, I eat less often. But, it is that you can't say every one thing is good for everybody, right?
Yeah, and it's all genetic. I mean, at the end of the day, we have people who are rapid carbohydrate metabolizers who do better on fats, people who, actually over time have become insulin resistant and now they do better on fats, but we can actually wean them off and we can make them mixed again. So a lot of those testings, there's like a breath testing company. I think they fell off. No offense to them, but thankfully.
Mm.
Because they basically had you breath test into see if you were a carb metabolizer or a fat metabolizer. The problem is we are both instinctually, depending on the meal that we've made. But the problem is when we are insulin resistant and we cannot tolerate those carbohydrates anymore. So we do need to reset the system and then basically reteach the system how to tolerate carbohydrates in a healthy way again. So it is completely possible. It is not a forever thing, but genetically speaking, we have people who are more predisposed to having that issue.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's like you sort of get into this rabbit hole of, what am I going to eat? And then you get into like, yeah, all these things. And it's like, well, but what am I going to eat?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I tend to sum it up in one word, food.
Hmm.
And I think we've just lost touch with what food actually is.
And I think for a lot of females, we deprived ourselves. I think females constantly, I need to remind them, don't forget to feed yourself. You need to eat. You need to eat. And that breaks your metabolism over time. You're under eating, you're chronically stressed, you're chronically like all this is happening where your body's not getting the nutrients it needs, and you are stressed, and it needs to come out into a balance.
Yeah, yeah. And that notion of balance is so individual it's like for me personally, no sugar at all is a balance for me, and a little bit of sugar used to unbalance me for weeks and weeks. And
Mhm.
so it's like being told, well, you got to have a bit of everything. Yeah, no, that doesn't work for me, for
Totally.
my
And you
balance.
want to know how many people I'm like, hey, we're gonna cut coffee for a little bit. And they're like,
Yeah.
can I do like half a cup a day?
Yeah.
That'll help me more. And so you are someone who's like just extreme. Just give me no coffee. I'm good to go because if I have a little bit, then it's just not good. It's not going to be good for me. And so there are kind of people that, do better one way or do better the other. And there's no wrong or right answer, right? Everyone has their own relationship with food. Everyone has their own history and their own future. And just allowing yourself to accept that and find personalized help who can help you guide you through that journey is going to be the easiest solution.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Thank you for being so, you know, so welcoming of all the different shades of grey that exist in the world. That's lovely to hear that. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, Dasha, how can they do that?
Absolutely. I have a bunch of free resources. If you go to at Dasha Fitness on Instagram, you will find free PDFs on gut and hormone health. You will find 50 plus ways to start optimizing your gut and hormone health. My main goal in life is to help as many people as possible. So if you need help, please reach out at Dasha Fitness, Dasha. Fitness is Fitness. And you can also reach us at coreperform.com as well.
Thank you, Dasha. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
I really enjoyed my conversation with Dasha, and I haven't had a lot of registered dietitians come on this podcast, not because I don't want them to come on, but because they've often turned me down because they told me that they think I'm too extreme. And so, what can you do with that? There's no dialogue possible if they've already made up their minds before they even talk to me. And so it was lovely to hear Dasha recognize that there are all types of ways of eating healthily, but that one of the common denominators is, well, cutting added sugar, which, as we were saying, is easier said than done. And that's exactly why I created the Freedom from Cravings Formula program. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of a restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life where you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can hop on a free clarity call with me at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on Program at the top. You'll also find the link with the show notes together with this episode. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.